The KSP2 developers showed off this orbital colony as a preview for the upcoming Colonies update. Well, I decided I couldn't wait, so I built my own, and of course I made it bigger. Hello everybody, and welcome! Last week, SpaceX sent the largest man-made single object into space with their Starship during its third test flight. However, even at 55 meters tall, it pales in comparison to the International Space Station, which is 109 meters end-to-end. But of course, it is not a single object. It was built by flying many smaller modules into space and connecting them together. But the developers of Kerbal Space Program 2 got it right. If you want to explore the stars in a sustainable way, you're going to need a lot of orbital stations scattered around the solar system. In reality, Starship and other heavy lift vehicles are going to play a big part in creating these types of stations. In KSP2, however, and with me playing, things tend to get a bit out of hand. And just like SpaceX with their Starship, some things don't go as planned. Again! Before we continue this madness, I need to ask for your help. I have been posting to this channel for almost a decade now, and I really want to crack the 100,000 subscriber mark before the year is out. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, because if you do, you're going to get the finest of over-engineered space vehicles this side of the internet, insights into the development of KSP2, and also some breakdowns of important milestones in spaceflight today. Alright, speaking of over-engineered space vehicles, this is me attempting to launch the first part of my orbital colony ring station, and well, you know what that means. Again! Yes, this means we have to do it again. But I redesigned the launch vehicle a little bit. I gave it more stabilizing wings, and I also switched from the multiple vector engines to the Mammoth 2. So I don't have as many parts, because Kerbal Space Program 2 still has a hard time calculating a lot of engines attached to the same tank, same problem the original game had, and that has plagued me a lot when I was playing that. But look at that cloud layer. The developers really improved on the visuals of the game ever since it came out a year ago, and not in a small part thanks to one of the most prolific visual modders for Kerbal Space Program 1, Blackrack, who did the Scatterer mod. He is now working on these type of scenery for KSP2. But enough about that, we're getting the center spoke of my ring station into orbit. And I thought in order to have some great cinematics, I would use the autopilot to perform the circularization burn. Yeah. Again. Turns out that this vehicle is still a little bit fragile, and I had to ease the throttle up until it was at 100%, and then I even pulled it down to 30 or something. Because if I would go from 0 to 100% throttle, then it would just disintegrate, as you have seen before, because a K2D2, the autopilot mod for Kerbal Space Program 2, it just goes from 0 to 100. I'm sure there is maybe some setting where you can ramp that up or something, but I wasn't bothered to look at it. Anyway, we got our first station part in orbit, and this is the center spoke. It alone weighs almost 700 tons, and then there are 9 additional ring segments with 580 tons each, and I thought I could send all of them at once. Turns out that was a little bit too much mass, because fully loaded the entire ring station is more than 6,000 tons, so 6 megatons, and yeah, that's too much. Again. So I decided to do 3 more launches. We have 9 ring segments split into 3 launches to 3 segments each. And even that is more than 1,500 tons of payload that I need to get into low Earth orbit, or low Kerbin orbit rather. So that launch vehicle you can see here is appropriately massive. And even then, we still need to have a big transfer stage on board that is very efficient, so we can get to the station in orbit and do all the docking maneuvers that are required. Alright, First stage separation, we're going to get rid of the massive solid rockets boosters, without which we would not have had the thrust-to-weight ratio to lift off. No solid rocket boosters on Starship, of course, because it is designed to be completely reusable from top to bottom, so it all has to rely on liquid fuel, just like these stages, but they're not reusable, they're just going to burn up in the atmosphere. Yeah, there is no real incentive either in Kerbal Space Program 1 or Kerbal Space Program 2 to really recover your stages, it's just not worth the hassle. But I hope it's worth the hassle of bringing all of this into orbit so we have some great views of a ring station. And here we go, we're meeting up with our center spoke. Yeah, it probably would have been more stable to build a station with like 4 spokes or 6 or 8 or whatever, but I really like the look of this just center spoke and then the ring around it. And yeah, I had very puny RCS on board to move these massive tanks, so that was a bit of a hassle, so I decided to redesign it. Yeah, this is the second time I flew up here, and I also added a big docking port on top so I could actually connect to the station and have everything there and then just move the segment around instead of having the stage that transported the 3 segments just hover around the station and always correcting my orbit. So yeah, this was a lot easier. Well, except this part. Moving that little red, what do we want to call it? A lift? Tug? Whatever. Moving this thing around was really rough because once you move it away from the tanks, it's totally wonky to control and yeah, really not a pleasure to do. But in the end, I managed to dock everything to the station. Or, well, it was docked to the station, but dock it into the right place, of course. And now we have the final segment of this delivery that's going to be attached. So 2 special segments with the big docking port on the side, and then we have 7 more segments around with the large docking ports on the ends. And here we're going to attach the last segment of this delivery with the desert in the background, floating by. Well, not really floating, it's below us. And yeah, KSP is weird again. Yeah, you could say KSP2 is so buggy, but this type of thing also happened in Kerbal Space Program 1 if you attempted this type of really complex build. And after that beauty shot of the ring station, or at least partially assembled ring station, we move on to the next segment delivery. This time, the keen-eyed viewers among you might have noticed that I did not bring just 1 of these red tugs, but 3, because I wanted to spare myself the annoyance of having to fly it around and redock. I would just dock the segment, ditch the red tug, and then let it deorbit and be done with it. Unfortunately, did not exceed the mass limit of the launcher, so yeah, that was a plus. And boom! This segment is done, and the next segment is also almost done. I'm really speeding through this because you've already seen it before, so no reason to show you everything again in excruciating detail, just the cliff notes basically. And look at that, the ring is taking shape. And our delivery vehicle is now deorbiting. Yeah, lots of expensive nuke engines that are going to burn up in the atmosphere. Ah well, what are we not willing to do for aesthetics? Because this station is completely pointless from a functionality point of view, it just looks cool. And it has a lot of fuel. As I said, 6,000 tons of wet mass, and most of it being propellant. I mean, each of these large white tanks has about 250 tons of fuel, of Methalox fuel. So yeah, you do the math how much fuel is in there. And then we also have the spherical tanks in the middle for hydrogen and so on. Okay, the first key segment sort of is in, and now we're going to place the last one. And I have a small confession to make. Since docking in KSP2 is a bit... well, it's kind of janky, because even when you're like 2 meters apart or something, it already instantly docks, so you really have a hard time of what do you call it, of aligning the docking ports in rotational axis. Speaking of rotation, this thing is not rotating, but it is a ring habitat that we're going to attach to the larger ring. And it is just a measly 242 tons with 190 parts built. And this was quite funny. I removed the aeroshell, which was for show anyways, and it would not move out of the way, so I gave it a little boink. Yeah, what I wanted to say earlier about having a confession to make, I teleported the entire assembled ring station. After I finished the assembly, it would not completely close the ring, not all docking ports would engage, so I deleted it from orbit and I transported it up via the cheat menu, because I figured if the game cheats me, then I can cheat the game, and I'm not ashamed of it. Well, the game is not cheating me, it's just behaving weirdly with docking, and we don't have that fine-tuning of docking port rotation that we do have in Kerbal Space Program 1. What we have here is unfortunately a nighttime docking, but I hope you can still see what's going on, because we're going to attach our ring. Yes, there it is. And with that, our station build is finished for the time being. So let's have a closer look at it. Because, yes, thanks to the crew modules, we can also have, of course, some station keeper staff on board. And we are doing a visual inspection if everything is up to snuff. Well, it looks like it, and yeah, some of you might have also noticed that the ring of the habitat is not really a ring, it's more like an ellipse. But it's not spinning anyways, so that should not matter. What does matter is that it looks cool. At least to me. I don't know, I hope you think the same. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about all of that, while we are going to take a look and take in all that scenery. I mean, look at those clouds and the landscape below, and that Kerbal taking a walk around the perimeter of the 100 diameter space station that we just built here. And yes, she is in awe of what she has built, or, well, she didn't build it anyways, I built it, but she was part of the build. And now let's take her back to the habitation ring, because staying out in space for such a long time will probably drain her life support. If Kerbal Space Program had that feature at all, which it doesn't, of course. Maybe this will be added by mods, or maybe some feature down the line later in the lifetime of that game. Now that we have completed this massive ring station, let's get back to what we talked about in the beginning and compare it to the official orbital colony with ring elements. In order to compare the two, we need to find out how large that thing the developers showed us really was. There are a lot of new parts in this short clip, but this one looks familiar. If we check its size inside the vehicle assembly building, we can see it is 5 meters across on each side. Let's assume this station does not use new structural parts that are even bigger. Now we can estimate how large the ring segment on top is by checking how many of these cubes would fit inside. 5 in each direction plus the center element adds up to 11, so the diameter of this ring segment is 55 meters, just over half of what I was able to build. But mine does not spin, so we have to give the developers that. So, what do you think about this little experiment of mine? Did you enjoy watching me build this thing? What would you use an orbital station for in KSP2, especially in regards to upcoming features like resource shipping lanes, orbital construction, and interstellar travel? Let me know in the comments below, or let's talk about it on my Discord server, link is in the description. And if what I do is something you really like, you can show your support by signing up as a YouTube member or over on Patreon. Not only will you have my undying gratitude, but you will get some behind the scenes stuff, early access to videos, and depending on the tier you choose, your name will show up here, like these wonderful people that support my channel. Will any of us watching or commenting ever step foot on such a ring station in our lifetime? Probably unlikely, but we can still dream. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.